the premises.
I don't know
It's
why
like
you
a
just sent in the
screenshot.
beginning. I don't know what we just did the whole thing for.
I don't, because you're the one that made us go down this line of reasoning.
Okay, let's read this. Nice, we got a unicorn and a cell phone. Look how pretty that is. Did you
Thank you. I
steal
just
this
looked
from a
this up.
YouTube video?
Nah, I'd never do that.
If I reverse image search it, oh no, it's from a
Yeah,
YouTube
okay, I
video.
saw it from
Oh,
YouTube, bro.
brother. Oh
I mean,
no,
it's a
for
good
anyone
argument.
wondering, he got it from a YouTube video, but okay, that's fine. Let's read it.
Wow, all like 2 people apart from us are impressed. You know, like you're a Torek man.
Let's see. From possible explanations. 1. For any contingent type, I assume type just means thing, right?
Not really.
What is a type?
Well, I don't know how to reduce type further down. Like, I can give you examples of types of things.
Well,
Like,
that won't help. Because you're just going to give me things that also could be things. So I'm going to go with thing until you figure it out. For any contingent
okay.
thing, something could explain its instantiation. Well, what if it's brute
Wait,
contingent?
bro, wait. Read from the definitions, like as in like
Sure.
D1, D2,
D1.
and yeah.
X is a contingent type. X could have members and could fail to have members. Wait, what if something is contingently simple? Wouldn't it have no members? Oh, because it could fail to have. I don't know what that means. What are members?
So I guess we could describe like an iPhone to be like a contingent type. So like that could be an iPhone. There could be at least one iPhone, or there could not be an iPhone. So like, I think that's pretty.
What?
Okay, so we could, bro. I don't know how to explain it down to you like further. I think it's pretty intuitive, right? Like if we say, um, like an iPhone is a contingent type, and that just means yeah, there could be at least one iPhone, or there may not be any iPhones. It just means that the type of thing which is iPhone could exist or could not exist.
So it's a contingent thing.
If you want to,
So
if
thank
you
you
think
for
that's
wasting
what I
my
mean,
10
bro.
minutes and then end up agreeing with the exact myself. Alright. Consistent with the necessary truths of reason. I don't know what that means. I'm gonna ignore it. Definition 2. Type T is instantiated. T has at least one member. One member as in it exists in one possible world. Is that what it's saying?
There is like no type T is instantiated if there's like one existent thing which is of that type.
So what I said.
No, because I mean, okay, bro, sure, bro, go on.
I'm trying to understand this, and then you're rambling back to me exactly what you're reading on screen, like it's gonna help me.
I mean, it's not exactly what I'm reading on screen, but like it's.
Okay.
I don't know. Like I feel like most people I gave the arguments, you could comprehend it. So like I thought the big bad moose could comprehend it as well.
Well, I think most people you're arguing with want to seem like they're smarter than they actually are, because when you try and actually explain this, it seems like you're reading just back to me what you see here. I don't think you actually know what members are or what instantiation is here. That's all right. Let's
I mean,
see.
I think this is pretty intuitive mostly, but
Yeah, you say that, but then I'm like, oh, so X is just a contingent thing, and you're like, no, it's a type, meaning it could have a member or fail to have a member, and I'm like, oh, so it just exists in a possible world or doesn't? And you're like, yeah, okay, well, 1. Any contingent type, something could explain its instantiation. For anything in a possible world, i.e., a contingent type, something could explain its instantiation. The problem is I see any. There's a type of contingency I'm sure you're aware of called brute contingency, and I'm not sure how one would prove that for a brute contingency.
okay, so you don't like you think there's a issue with saying it's possible to explain a brute contingency?
Yeah.
You think like they're necessarily brute?
So I think, well, a brute contingency is by definition without explanation, kind of like a necessary thing is by definition in all possible worlds, yeah.
No, but like we wouldn't say in all possible worlds this thing has no explanation. We just say that this thing has no explanation.
No, I know, yeah, but a brute contingency cannot have an explanation. That's its very nature, yeah.
No, it just means that it has no explanation. That's not. It does. It doesn't say it could not have explanation. It says it has no explanation.
Okay, so if something is a brute contingency, you think that it can have an explanation in a possible world.
Yeah,
So what is its bruteness in that possible world?
it's not brute in that possible world, but in
So
this
then it's not a brute
current world, it's not brute.
contingency.
Oh, what?
That's the
Okay,
problem.
so hold on. Any contingent thing, like under the weak PSR, which is what the argument's presenting, could be a brute contingency.
Wait, what?
Yeah, okay. Any contingent thing could be a brute contingency insofar as that thing may or may not have an explanation. So
No.
there might be an explanation for a contingent in this possible world, but in a different possible world, that thing might not have an explanation.
Uh-uh. No, the brute
Okay.
contingencies aren't like it's not like a virtue of the contingency. It's like an actual thing. Like a brute contingency is a thing. It's like a thing that has no definition by it. You want me to ask
I
ChatGPT?
don't know anywhere within the brute contingency, like the definition of the brute,
You want me to ask
that it says that.
ChatGPT? Would you? Can I ask ChatGPT?
Sure.
Okay, let's see. Yeah. Okay. See.
Okay, that's oh my god, that's fine. It just exists without explanation. That like that brute contingency exists without explanation, right? That's fine, but it still could have an explanation. Just means that it's no longer brute.
But then, yeah. Then what do I care if it's no longer a brute contingency? What's the point?
Okay, like okay, for any contingency, right? It's possibly brute or possibly not brute. So that means in some possible world it has an explanation, which is what which is what the premise one says.
For any contingency type, something could explain it. No, because if something is brute, because could there be something that's brute in every possible world?
Could there be something that's brute in every possible like I don't know
I feel like there could be. Could there be a brute
why.
contingency that's true in every possible world? Because it doesn't seem to contradict anything.
I don't even know what it means for a contingency to be true in every possible world.
Not true, but brute. Without, could there be a contingent thing that is brute in every possible world? I don't see a contradiction to that unless you know of one.
I don't see the okay. Like I could just say the same thing and say I don't see the contradiction with it having a possible explanation.
Well, yeah, by definitions.
But the definition doesn't talk about possibility. It talks about the state of affairs
No, no, I
currently.
understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. I'm not sure how to look this up in a way that would answer the question that you're asking. Because you're saying that it's just a contingency that happens to be brute in this possible world, but in another possible world, it could have a different explanation. Whereas my understanding of a brute contingency is that in its very nature, it is brute, and therefore it would have no explanation no matter the possible world.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen anything that corresponds to that definition, bro.
I'm just putting two and two together. Like when I think of brute contingency, if this can be explained in a different possible world, then its bruteness is removed. So then it would just be conditional, and that just seems really weird to me because I've never seen someone use brute contingency as like a conditional idea in a certain.
I mean, that's how like the weak PSR works, right? It says for any contingent, it has a possible explanation, but that thing could be brute in some possible worlds. And like the weak
I
PSR
don't
isn't
think
controversial.
so. Is that what the weak PSR said?
Yeah,
I don't think so.
maybe not exactly how I said it, but
The weak PSR. Either some possible world where it is explained, though it is prima facie leaves open the possibility that some contingent truth actually lacks an explanation, though it could have had one.
yeah, so it's possible for it to have been explained.
Wait, let me read again. Oh yeah, so the assumption for the weak PSR is that it could have had an explanation in a different possible world. Like yeah, I don't see anything wrong with that, but then I also ask like, okay, but assume that it didn't, then why would it encompass your premise one for any contingent type? What if I call it let's call
The
it a universal brute contingency. That's my type. Universal brute contingency. It's something that is not like brute in every possible world. Wouldn't you agree for one
okay,
then?
but to say it's brute in every possible world is to imply to me there's some contradiction in with it being explained.
No, it doesn't have to be.
Okay, so if there isn't some contradiction in by it being explained, then it can be explained. Therefore, it's not
Something fundamental about its nature that makes it brute. Well, the part is you can't explain bruteness. Like it's not like I can give you like a fundamental principle of which something becomes brute. It would just have to be brute in its very nature.
wait. Wait, hold on. No, I wouldn't go as far as saying that's fine. But do you understand the argument? Though? It's like okay, if there's no contradiction entailed from it being possibly explained, then it's not universally brute necessarily because there's
I don't know because
some
to raise
possibility
a
of existing.
fundamental principle of contradiction, I'd have to understand why something could be unexplained. Like that's not a question I can ask.
So wait, so you're saying not necessarily like
Well, what's the principle? What's the principle you lean on to say
like
something?
I could explain why a necessary thing could be brute. Just by definition, it has no
Why a necessary
um
thing could be brute?
yeah by definition, a necessary thing has no explanation, right?
There are both brute and non-brute necessary things, to my understanding.
I mean, as far as I'm aware, like okay, like if there is a brute, necessary being. Like, I mean,
Hold on,
if they, I
actually,
mean,
I
no,
have
wait,
this saved
I
from
wouldn't
my
even
other
understand
debate.
what it means for necessary being to not to like to be non-brute, to be honest. But
To have an explanation for the way it is.
yeah, but then
Six
wouldn't
categories of
just be.
explanation. Self-explanatory. Yeah, it could be self-explained is one of them. Yeah, this was from my instinct debate. I researched all this shit from a few years ago. It was like this is like the tree for understanding. Like if it's not apt for explanation, it's autonomous. If it's apt for explanation but it has no explanation, it's truly brute. Like a contingent autonomous fact that is not apt for explanation. Rather than having no, it can never have one. Then what would you say for premise one?
I just don't know if those kind of things exist. Like I don't
Uh,
know if you can point me towards something
like in
that could
reality?
possibly not have an explanation. Not in reality, just like the possibility of it. Like I just
Well, I'm
I'm
just
not
telling you,
really.
like there's the definition of an autonomous contingent fact. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah, okay. So to say like there's an autonomous contingent fact is to say that there is some contradiction in tail from that thing being explained. Although you might not be able to explain the contradiction, isn't that kind of the point, though, right? You just
No, I don't think it's a
kind of.
problem to not be able to like choose which metaphysical principle like shows no contradiction. I just think in and of itself, it's definitionally true, even if you can't explain it. That's kind of the point.
I mean, you're the one that called into question definitions, like having the power to actualize things, right? You
Yeah,
can say
absolutely,
that.
but
Oh
we're
yeah,
not talking about reality
definition is
though.
true.
Like the premise one that you gave is conceptual. It has nothing to do with existing in reality.
Okay, so you're saying possibly there is something that could not be explained, right?
Possibly there is something that cannot be explained. Like possibly
Hmm.
as in it could exist? Are you talking about like possible existence or just conceptually?
Um,
Because
I don't
conceptually,
see
I
the
would say
distinction
there
there.
exists a thing of which cannot be explained.
What do you mean conceptually?
Like, as in, I can imagine this thing, and therefore it would rule out premise one. Whereas whether it actually exists in that possibility, I don't know if I would make that like that firm
I'm not
statement.
sure. Like, I like if you say conceptually, insofar as you can conceive of it, I'm not familiar with conceivability being something that determines possibility,
What do you think the
or like at
laws
least
of thought
metaphysical
are?
possibility, as in metaphysical possibility, right?
Well, so okay, the thing with metaphysical possibility is that no one really uses it. Like metaphysical possibility, just
Everyone uses it for every dispute that I'm aware of.
it's more logical possibility is what people use.
No, I disagree.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look.
Like
Here's a
if we're arguing about philosophy of mind, we're going to be referring to metaphysical possibility. If we're arguing about
wait. What?
like I know like I can name some theologians that refer to metaphysical possibility as the necessary, like as the mode of scope for God's being necessary.
Well, when I
So
say
like it's
when
not
someone says
something that
like God necessarily exists, what they're saying is like his non-existence is a logical contradiction. That's kind of like the statement being made, right? You'd agree?
I I mean no I disagree. Like
What's the
like
statement being
broadly
made?
speaking, yeah, like to say that God necessarily exists is to say that God's existence is guaranteed metaphysically.
Okay, well, you just said the same thing back to me. I'm like break that down. Like when I'm saying logical possibility, I'm saying his non-existence violates a law of logic. Now, what are you saying?
Okay, and I'm saying um God's God's existence. Like wait, like I asking me for like what it means something to be like metaphysically necessary. Is that the question?
No, yeah, like when you say like I'm using the metaphysical possibility, I'm asking you in scope. What is the question that you're asking? What is the statement you're making?
Okay, the statement I'm making when I say uh God is metaphysically necessary is to say that God's thingy that like there is some necessary being God that can't fail to exist metaphysically,
Like what
and
are the
the like
laws of
and
metaphysics?
the can't part is entailed by its essence.
What are the laws of metaphysics?
We just go back to essentialism and say that it's contrary to the essence or not.
Okay, wait, I'm so confused. So you're saying that God needs to be necessary because his essence is that he's necessary.
Yeah, so if God exists, then God is necessary in virtue of his essence.
Could I just say like there's a necessary magician, and if he exists, he must be necessary because of his essence?
If he exists. Sure.
Okay, but I'm saying nothing then. Like I'm just telling you, like, oh, if a blue apple exists, it's blue. Like, yeah, no shit. Like, that's not really telling me much, is it?
Bro, you're asking me to define a thing, so obviously I'm
Okay,
telling
sorry.
you the
Let me be meaner. What I'm telling you is that your definition's fucking retarded because you're giving me no information about the nature of the being other than if it exists how I want it to exist. And that says nothing about
Oh
the
my
nature
god,
of
okay,
reality.
so I think I already clarified it. I'll clarify one more time, okay, retard. So I'm saying it's within this thing's nature, its essence, for it to not be able to fail to exist. Okay, that's the claim I'm making when I say God is metaphysically necessary. You don't make the same claim in some other modal scopes. If I'm using a physical modal scope and I say that something is physically necessary, I'm not making the claim about its essence. So
What
that's
claim
the
are you
distinction
making?
between a physical and metaphysical modal scope
What
in that
claim are you
instance.
making for the physical? What are the parameters? Do you know?
If I say under like I guess a complete set of like the physical laws, some things existence is guaranteed.
Physical
That
laws,
would be
right? You're using the laws of physics.
uh-huh.
Okay, and for logic, what are you using? The laws of logic. But for metaphysics, you're
Uh-huh.
telling me you're just using something's essence. Do you understand how that's not a parameter of existence?
Why? I don't
Because
understand.
it
No.
the, the problem is when I look at something like the laws of logic and I look for contradiction, what I'm looking at are the parameters in reality and testing something to see if it fits them. What you're doing is you're already telling me this thing is defined as such and thus is actualized as if it were that thing. These aren't parameters because it always becomes true. There's never a false
Wait,
actualization of essence.
there are parameters to which we can test a metaphysical possibility.
Okay, tell me them. How do I prove something is metaphysically contradictory?
Yeah, like okay, so let's say it's in the essence of water to be H2O, right? Or like let's say it's within the essence of the mind to be physical. And then we refer to like some non-physical mind, or we refer to some water which is not chemically composed by H2O, then those two things would be demarcated as metaphysically impossible, even though I can conceive of them anyway.
So it's just anything that doesn't align with its own definition.
But I can conceive of those things, so like
Wait,
seemingly they'd be
what?
logically possible.
You could conceive of water being H3O?
You don't think I can conceive of like water not being H2, or I can conceive of like a non-physical mind? You don't think I can conceive of those things?
I don't know what conceive. Wait, can you conceive of a square circle? Let's get that clear first.
No.
Okay. So when you say you can conceive of water being H3O, what does that mean?
Okay. It means okay. Like wait, what do you mean when you say conceive? Because
Like when I'm
we
thinking
don't
of a
want to go
square
there.
circle, I'm thinking of can I form a picture in my head of a square circle? No. Can I?
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Sure. I can make a mental image, right, of water not being composed of H2O. I
What
think
does that
that's
look
fine
like?
because we understood.
Explain that one
Hold
to
on.
me. No, explain that to me. What does it look like for water not to be H2O?
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So just like imagine like a different planet where like water, like where there is no H2O but there is water. It seems like consistent for us to be able to
What is that? That's not
mentally
a
conceive that.
conceivability. I'm asking for you to draw me a picture right now. Conceive of this thing. What does it look
I
like?
asked you to imagine it. Like I'm not gonna go into your brain and like wire it such that you can imagine it.
No, just
Like
tell me what you're imagining. I want to know.
yeah, I told you. Like what I told you to imagine is what I'm imagining. Like a different planet,
Uh
right?
huh.
Maybe some like red planet. Like there's humans on it, and
Uh
like they
huh.
find a water source, but that planet is confirmed to have no H2O, but they're still drinking water. I can make that mental
Do
image.
you understand how that's not like no, you're not conceiving of that? What you're conceiving of is
Okay,
H2O because all you know is water being H2O. I don't know how to explain that further.
I mean, okay. So wait, do you are you familiar with that with the P zombie argument?
The what?
Okay, so like, if it's the case that the mind is identical like to some physical processes, wherever like we have you don't think I can imagine some like physical mind without any mental states?
You can imagine. Yeah, you can imagine a physical
Wait,
mind
I
because you
mean,
just imagine the
I'll clarify.
brain.
So wait, let's say we had like a perfect physical copy of Moose, right? Assuming the mind's material, can I conceive of Moose with no mental states and Moose with mental states, but like they're physically identical?
I don't know what that means to exist of someone with mental states.
Are you
Like me
sure?
being active. I'm so confused. What does that mean?
Like just for you to have no mental states, no sentience, no whatever, like you're just a fucking zombie, just stand still.
Yeah, you can.
Okay, but assuming the mind is physically identical, assuming the mind is identical to like the brain physically, I shouldn't be able to conceive of that, but I still can. So it's metaphysically impossible, right? Because in essence, the mind is the brain, but it's not logically impossible. There's no logical contradiction to tell that.
I have no fucking idea what you're saying right now. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. You're saying that
Okay,
there's a me who is normal and a me with no brain states, and you're saying that it's metaphysically
no.
impossible.
There is a you. There's two yous. There's Moose 1, Moose 2. Moose 1 is you, and Moose 2 is you, who is physically identical to you, but has no mental states.
Okay,
Okay, I can conceive of that.
sure.
Uh, I can still conceive of it, assuming the mind is identical with the brain. I mean, yeah, sure.
Well, yeah, because that's what you always assume is that the mind is the brain. What's the point?
Okay, so if it's the case, the mind is the brain. The mind meaning a collection of mental states. Then, obviously, obviously that's something that's metaphysically impossible. Like that's absurd, right? But it's something I can conceive of. So conceivability doesn't demarcate
But you're just
possibility.
looking at me with a brain that works versus me with a brain that doesn't work. It's not a
It's not about the
contradiction.
brain not working. It's a physically identical brain.
A physically identical mind doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't matter because you're not imagining the mind. There's no mind that you're making a picture of. That's not a
I
conceivable
said brain, by the
object.
way.
Okay, yeah, the brain either works or it doesn't. Whether you conceive of it with me working, a brain working, or a brain not working, makes no comment at all to the mind.
Whether or not it's working is okay. If one's working and one's not working, then they're not physically identical.
They're not physically identical. Yeah, because one's working and one's not working.
Okay, but I'm saying we're imagining two physically identical mooses.
They're already not physically identical. You're just creating contradictions and then trying to lay them as if they're different
Okay.
scenarios.
So this is like the tracking of doom, right? So
Dude, I just think that you
I'm
read some
saying I
PDF and think you're
can
like a
conceive them being
genius
physically
now,
identical.
but like everything you're saying doesn't make sense because you can't be physically identical and physically non-identical at the same time. Your examples contradict
Oh,
each other. Like when you say
no,
like
okay.
assume water, but now assume the water is H3O on a different planet, and I could conceive of that. No, you can't. The only water you've ever known and can ever know is H2O. Even this idea you're proposing is preposterous, but you just don't understand that, and I'm not sure how to
Wait, I
like
mean,
relate it to
like
you.
it just seems like you're saying. It seems like I'm giving you a case where it seems like I can conceive this thing. You're saying no, you're not actually conceive. Oh, hold on, wait.
Yes, you're
I am
not,
to break my
because
side.
you're
Hold on, let me
contradicting
see.
it. That's the problem. Oh my
You're not
god,
understanding that I'm saying
I'm
that
not
these things are
understanding.
impossible in some sense, but I can still conceive of them.
Right, because
So
they're
like
not
it just seems
impossible in
like you're
some
dying on the hill
sense.
of conceivability, determined possibility.
Because I don't think you understand what conceivability means. Like you're like when you said like water, you can imagine it being H3O. Like that literally like no, you cannot. That is not possible. Do you understand that?
I just disagree though. Like I think it's logically possible for water to not be H2O.
Three, say yes, and then I want to ask people because I just don't think you're right about this. Like I'm not, what do you think conceivability is?
Being able to make a mental image of something.
Okay, well this was not the answer I was hoping for. I have no fucking idea what this means. Let's pick something different so I can ask it. What
Oh
H7O
wait,
or
okay.
something?
Like how about this, right? Just ask it about essentialism, right? And ask to give examples of things that you can conceive of that are metaphysically impossible.
I'm gonna ask it. Can I conceive of water being different from H2O? Like I don't understand. Water is a thing, and when you conceive of H2O, that is identical to water. When you're telling me you're conceiving of something which is water yet not H2O, do you understand how that to me makes zero sense?
It makes zero sense insofar as it's like logically impossible. But does
Exactly.
the statement I can conceive of my bad metaphysically impossible? But does the
Well, no,
statement
logically. It
insofar as
is logically because it violates the law of non-contradiction. Or, sorry, the
is
law of identity.
water, is water necessarily what H2O?
Yeah, water is necessarily H2O, yeah.
But
That's the
then
law of
then
identity.
lol. Um no. But if
No?
water
No?
no to say water is H2O is to say that water and H2O are identical and there can be water that has additional properties besides it having the chemical composition of H2O. Can I not have green water, like lemon water, lime water? That's water that's not only H2O, it's composed of other things as well.
Oh,
So no,
that's
water
way
is not
different. That
identical
is
to
so
H2O.
different from saying water is H3O. You understand that, right? Like, that is completely different.
I know, bro. I know it's different, but I'm telling you, it's logically possible, right, to say that water is not identical to H2O because I'm saying the only part of water that is similar to H2O, whatever, is the fact that water is chemically composed of H2O. But I'm saying maybe the chemical composition of water, I can conceive of that to be different.
So you can conceive of the chemical composition of water, H2O, being different and it still being water. Do
Yes.
you understand how that is not possible?
No, I
In
think
your
it's
brain,
metaphysically
that
impossible.
image, you can, what are you forming like a fucking electron next to like a thing of water? Like, I'm so confused of what this image looks like to you.
I mean, like, I'm just imagining a world where, like, there is no hydrogen or whatever. And then, like, we just say that that like that water is just the H
You can't
like
use
3O
propositions
or
in conceivability because then you're just not conceiving. You're saying, okay, there's no hydrogen or oxygen on this world, and yet I'm looking at water. Like in your head, you're like, okay, so water can exist without it. But in everyone
I mean,
else's
okay, I'm
head,
not
it's
gonna lie
like,
to you,
okay,
like
obviously you're
the
contradicting
fact
yourself.
that we're even having this dispute is just kind of showing me that conceivability as a method of possibility seems to be a bit weird because what's conceivable to me might not be conceivable to you. So it's like just like whatever.
Sometimes, but that's based on like culture. Like if I tell you to conceive of my mom's jambalaya or something, like yeah, you can't conceive of that. But when I'm telling you about something universal in principle, like for instance this, like water being H2O, then no, we have the same metric for conceivability.
Bro, I'm not gonna lie to you. It just feels like um we can't bridge this gap, bro. Because you're saying I can conceive of it, you can't conceive of it, and I'm saying I can.
I mean,
But
I want you to
um
write out to me what you're like. I'm happy to ask other people, but I think you're like crazy. Like write out to me that like you think that you can
I mean, like
see
this isn't like an insane view, right? This is common,
with no
somewhat common.
hydrogen.
Yeah, like people, Kripke argues it. Like in his defense of essentialism, which is the view I'm positing, he just says that, oh, I can conceive of water being like not being H2O.
Like,
Like,
can you
okay,
say
hold
yes
on,
to
hold on.
this? Can you just
I'll
say
just
yes to
ask
this
you a
in
question,
chat?
right? Um,
Okay, then type exactly what you said because I want to screenshot these and send these to people. Delete that and
okay,
then actually retype exactly what you said.
okay, hold on. I said the chemical composition. Okay,
Well, don't type some like fucking nerdy shit. Just type like a layman because these are being sent to people, so I don't want them to have to fucking.
okay.
But you understand how this seems to me, right? Like it seems to me like you're saying like I can conceive of a square circle. Here's a square. Here's a circle. Like that. That's what I'm hearing right now.
I understand that.
Regulus, are you here, buddy? Tell
But
me what you think.
the issue with those things is that um it's within the nature of a square to not be round, right? But then
And
I
it's in the nature of
then
water to
again
have
like
two hydrogen and an oxygen.
yeah, but like the whole point is I'm saying it's metaphysically impossible, but I can still conceive of it. But insofar as like the logical thing, um
Do you know the
like
laws of logic are also called the laws of thought for a reason, right? Because they limit your ability to conceive of things. Like that's kind of like the point of them being called the
I
laws of
mean
thought, right?
conceivability as a metric. I mean, okay, I don't mind for the sake of argument just saying that okay, conceivability can I guess whatever it can determine logical possibility. To be honest, I want to still that for now. Can we go back to that
I mean, the
anything?
problem is just your metaphysical thing is just the law of identity. That's all I'm hearing.
I don't know. I just don't think you can liken it to the law of identity. And then even
What's the
then, if you
difference?
want to liken metaphysical possibility to conceivability, you do realize you end up collapsing logical and metaphysical motor scopes to be one.
Yeah, I don't mind that. That's what I do all the time. I don't think metaphysical is a real modal scope. It's just interchangeable with logical to me.
And then like I think that has its own issues. But
I don't think so. Like, I feel like I've always just used logical, and I feel like everyone I've talked to has used logical, and then whenever someone brings up metaphysical, they just mean logical. It's just the way I've always done it. I don't see a problem with it. The way you describe it, like, not to be me, it sounds like it doesn't matter. Like, you're just describing the law of identity to me.
I mean, no, because like these things, like these natures, are necessary to the thing, right?
Here, this is what my favorite website says. And just reading metaphysical possibility according to them, I just don't. It just doesn't matter to me.
What does it say?
It says true in some possible world, but might depend on how reality is structured, e.g., consciousness without a brain.
Yeah, that's like
Right, like to me, there's like no such thing as consciousness without a brain. Like that itself, like I don't understand that scope because I think that scope cannot exist.
um.
I'm a
I
metaphysical
mean,
deflationist. Well, you
I mean,
understand the
like,
problem I'm having, right?
yeah, like, I guess so.
I
But
think I'm not
I
crazy.
guess
Like it
it's
seems
whether
to
or
be.
not it's within the definition of water for it to be composed off of like hydrogen and oxygen cells. I mean, cells is insane, but atoms. So like, if obviously if it's true by definition that water is composed of those things, then you can't conceive of it, right? Because it's like logically impossible. Um, that's I mean, I guess so, right?
Wait, say it again.
But I mean, yeah, okay. To say that water is identical to H2O,
Uh huh.
insofar as when we have H2O, there is water, right?
Yeah.
If that relationship is true, then I understand what you mean. But I'm calling the whole idea into question.
I
Like,
mean, yeah,
I don't
could you
think
like send
water.
me something that calls that into question? Like, I've never heard of this before. Like, this has always just been a thing. Like, law of identity is true.
No, it's not like a thing about like the whole entity. It's like, hold on. Let me look for it.
Like, do you understand? Like, when I say like the square circle thing and then the water thing, like, why are those different to you?
Um, but I don't think it's. How do I explain it? Um, hold on. Let me read this.
I don't know Regulus, but I assume he's gonna be a smart guy. So let's see what he thinks. Ugh.
Oh, you chat GPT for the thing, yeah. Okay, hold on.
I chat GPT everything.
Wait. I actually want to ask you a question. Then wait.
But
Before water was discovered to be H2O, do you think we had an idea of what water is?
yeah, like in terms of like what we saw, or like I don't know what that means. Wait, actually, let me go
I mean,
back to
like
my
we
yeah.
have
What
we
do you
had
mean?
some understanding of water before H2O, so it doesn't.
I mean, an understanding of water. Like I don't know, an understanding of like what this was that we called water.
Um. Yeah.
No, sure, yeah.
Sure.
Like we saw like this flowy blue stuff. We were like, ooh, we're gonna call this water, but that doesn't
Okay. I
really
mean, I can
change what.
conceive of that flowy blue stuff not being composed of H2O. That's just what I mean.
But you can't, no, because it always has been and always will be composed of H2O. And any change to that would make it not water. That's what I'm saying. Like I understand exactly what you're saying. I just don't think it can exist. So I don't understand what it is you're actually conceiving of.
I mean, um, I guess like I can't explain it. Like, either you have the intuition or you don't, bro.
I understand it. I
Like
understand that. I think your intuition is very wrong, in my opinion.
I think people can like there's some philosophers that take the view that um water isn't like composed of water isn't like we can conceive water that isn't H2O
Who is
molecules.
making
But
these
this
views? Show me this. Who is saying this?
Kripke.
Oh my god, he's like, the guy's an idiot. But sure, let's see.
But like also the whole point is, well, okay, if it's even if it's impossible, I can like if you want to say, well, it's impossible, whatever, but it seems like I can still conceive
Bruh.
of it. So
Okay.
like,
Saul Kripke, in his philosophical work, argues that water's H2O is a posteriori necessary, meaning that while we discover this identity through empirical investigation, it's a necessary fact of the world that water is H2O.
okay, and ask if he thinks that water can be conceived as non H2O. Not the way I phrased it, but
I got you. Let's see.
because
Um,
like the examples he gave against conceivability being possibility
it said the
was
same
the
thing,
H2O
dude.
example.
Unless you want to retype it yourself and ask.
No, okay. I agree that water is metaphysically necessary. Wow, that's insane. I agree that water is necessarily H2O metaphysically. I agree. Okay, it's
Oh,
in
hold
the
on.
essence of water.
Even though we might have conceived of water being something else before we discovered it was H2O, is that what you're saying?
No, like I can still conceive of water being distinct from H2O, even though it's metaphysically necessary for water to be H2O.
Oh, the twin Earth thought experiment. Is that what you've been using very badly?
No.
Kripke
It's
used this line of
literally this
thought to
example.
illustrate this point. On twin Earth, the liquid that looks and acts like water is not H2O, but a different substance, XYZ. Kripke argued that even though we could conceive of twin Earth, it is still metaphysically necessary that water is
Hold
H2O.
on. So,
I'm just
for
reading this
instance,
stuff,
right,
man. I don't know. I don't know where you're getting this from.
like yeah,
I'm not
like
gonna
there.
lie. I
Okay, yeah,
don't.
sure. Yeah, okay, yeah, sure. Okay, in a twin Earth, in a physical identical Earth, whatever. But like, bar this, I can conceive of that Earth where water is not H2O. Like that's what he's saying, right?
No, because it's not water, is what he's
Simply argue
saying.
that even though we could conceive of twin Earth, it is still metaphysically necessary that water on Earth is H2O. I
Yeah, yeah,
agree.
yeah.
I agree.
But on Twin
Yeah,
Earth, he said the liquid that looks and acts like water is not H2O because it's not water. That's the point.
but I'm still. Am I okay? So your example is to say that whenever I conceive of water, it's not water that I'm conceiving of then,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. You're just conceiving of something that looks like water because water isn't necessarily H2O.
Okay, so okay.
Would you agree at least? Please tell me yes. This is not like a gotcha. It's just like a basic
Yeah.
base.
Okay. Yeah. Like.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Sure.
All right. Yeah.
But even then, like conceivability as possibility is still a bit odd to me.
I think
I
the
wouldn't know what
same,
it
but
means to conceive of a necessary being or to not conceive of a necessary being. But
that's fair. That's fair. Like you couldn't like picture in your head what God looks like, obviously. But I still I would agree with that, but then I would turn conceivability into something a bit different. Whereas conceivability in this case is my ability to put propositions together in my head.
like when you say put propositions together in your head, you mean like form a physical like I mean form a mental image of it?
Yeah, but like more like a like I can't like if I try to imagine God, well, I just imagine like some old guy with a beard, right? Even though that's not what God is. But like if I try and imagine like what it would mean for God to exist, I can just imagine like an absence of space and time and like a universal conscious kind of like image. Even though it's not true, like that's kind of like a conceivable idea I would have. But like I understand what you're saying. Like yeah, like you can't like conceive of a necessary being because you would just conceive of a thing that happens to be necessary.
I mean, like I'd go as far as saying that for the discussions that we're having, it probably is more useful to go off of things like the possibility of things being based on their essences.
I don't like
Because
that at all. No.
is there something in, like is there a counter example you can give?
Um, besides things being, yeah, it would be kind of the fact that its essence doesn't necessarily like correlate to its existence.
What do you mean?
Like if I were to tell you like, okay, there exists a thing like God and its essence is necessary, but then there also exists a thing, or no, actually, let me go with this. There exists an essence of which is omnipotence. Do you think two things can be omnipotent at the same time?
Um,
The
um,
answer is no, right?
mm, no,
But like it wouldn't
no.
contradict something's essence to be omnipotent, right? It would just contradict something else. It's like that doesn't make much sense to me.
Well, I mean, we could say that a property of omnipotence. Actually, I mean, no, I think it would contradict the essence of the thing. I think it contradicts what omnipotence is in essence, right? Omnipotence is the ability to actualize all possibilities. Um, if it's the case that, oh wait, how would two things that are like both omnipotent not like how can they coexist again?
Like you wouldn't be able to change the nature of the other omnipotent thing because your omnipotence and their omnipotence kind of like cancel out is my idea of it.
Okay, so I mean,
But like wouldn't you agree if like I told
um,
you that like you wouldn't like use like this metaphysical essence thing, you would move on to logical possibility and like use the law of non-contradiction because that's kind of like what the
like
scope is in
my
general.
my I guess like I guess the issue I have with that is to say, okay, if it's impossible for this, being to do this thing, then trivially, it doesn't matter because it's still omnipotent, right? Like,
Huh?
it's impossible for God to make a rock that he can't lift. In the same way that it's impossible for God to change the nature of another omnipotent being. But then it doesn't mean that like it's no longer omnipotent. It just means that it can do something, but that thing is just impossible anyway.
You think it's impossible for you to change the nature of something else if you're omnipotent?
Well, like insofar as like two omnipotent beings, and we have like this unchanging nature, or like this other omnipotent being, then sure.
Okay, and then what did you agree then? Like that kind of extent is based on the laws of thought rather than this metaphysical essence?
Um, no, because it'd be like contradict, like it'd be like
Law of
removing the
identity.
hate. Not necessarily because like if you want to reduce it down to that,
Yeah.
sure, not really at the same time because the law of identity encompasses every property a thing has, but the essence, like the essentialism, just refers to the essential properties a thing has. Right?
Yeah,
So
but the laws of logic then have a greater scope.
I agree they have a greater scope.
Well, then what's the point of using metaphysical identity if it has a lesser scope?
I just like I wanted to avoid the whole conceivability thing anyway. Because
We don't have
because
to use conceivability if we use logical possibility, because that's just what I'm familiar with. I just don't understand like that you
yeah,
were really
yeah, like,
firm on
but
this whole
then
metaphysical thing.
okay, like my whole issue is just like parody and counter arguments that are like, okay, well, you give them like strong reason for like this for like this logically necessary being to exist, and then you say, well, in some possible world, like there's no contradiction entailed. To like being doesn't like it just I don't like that type of argument. Like sure, the argument I gave in favor of atheism there was false, but still like I don't want to get into that as well.
No, that's fine. I mean, I don't. I'll use arguments that you think are fine. It's just when I approach this question, I have to be careful because every time I say something, you just respond with metaphysical essence, and then it's like we're back to square one again. Because every time you refer to that, it's like, okay, now we have to go through again. What is the essence? What does it matter? How does it refer to this? Like, I just hate using this metaphysical stuff.
Okay, yeah, sure. We can talk about logical possible, bro. I
Okay,
haven't even it yet, bro. God.
it's all right.
I
You're
don't know if we can't come to a conclusion in like 10 minutes, we can just
That's
wrap it
fine.
up.
10 minutes. Okay, so we're talking about logical possibility. Okay. So for any
Yeah.
contingent type, actually, let me just read the rest of this because I was like firm on premise one, but let's see. Being contingent is a contingent type. Call it C. Something could explain C's instantiation. Contingent things couldn't explain C's instantiation. Okay, so you're very firmly taking out infinite regression. Why?
No, it's not infinite regression. It's just that um uh contingent things can't explain why there are any contingent things to begin with. It can explain a contingent thing can explain the existence of another particular contingent thing, but it doesn't tell me why there are any contingent things in the first place. That's just brute.
But yeah, can it just be a brute contingent thing that explains why contingent things exist?
Can a brute contingent thing explain something else? I
Yeah.
mean, yeah. I think that's possible.
Right. Yeah. So that would just
Wait,
be
wait, 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 wait.
what?
Like insofar as like, wait. When you say a brute contingency, that's so bad, bro. A brute contingency could explain like every other contingent, and then that contingent itself doesn't have an explanation. Like that's still circular because that brute contingency is still contingent.
No, it's not circular. It would just make your argument wrong.
How come?
Because it's just saying like you're saying contingent things couldn't explain that a contingent thing can exist, or what is it? The set of all contingent things? What is it? Contingent type.
I mean, like the contingent type, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So a contingent thing could not exist from a contingent thing, is what you're saying, right? But that kind of assumes that there was no contingent thing to begin with.
So you're saying possibly all contingent things could be explained by a contingent thing, and then that contingent thing that explains all contingent things is brute.
Say it again.
You're saying like all contingent things
Uh
could be
huh.
explained by a contingent thing, and then that contingent thing is brute. That's the
Yeah, but
yeah.
like even in the all contingent things, like a contingent thing is like included in that set, but the set can explain itself. Yeah.
Um, my issue I have with that is that we're asking for the explanation of all contingent things. So to say that all contingent things are explained by contingent things, or obviously that is circular. But then to refer to a brute contingency and say, well, that brute contingency doesn't have any explanation, that's fine. But that's the thing of calling it a question because it's saying possibly these things are all explained, including the brute contingency. So in that possible explanation, that brute contingency also has the possible explanation as
Oh
well,
my god.
which is
So
what we're
then we
looking
have
for.
to go back to the thing from earlier, which was the autonomous brute contingencies. We just keep going back to the same points.
Yeah, I just like my whole issue with that is that I don't know if that's possible.
You don't think autonomous brute? Okay, well then what the fuck you want me to say? Like this is my argument. You're like I don't agree. All right, well fuck. What do you want me to do? Like, do you think like okay? Let's say nothing exists. Like there's just blah blah blah, right? Wagwar exists.
Yeah.
Nothing. And all of a sudden, boop, brute contingency exists. What's the explanation? I don't know. I don't know why it exists. And now here comes oh, contingencies exist now. Now, if you're asking what
Wait,
is the explanation for the first
that's
one,
plausible.
yeah. So like I don't know how to
That
answer your question. Like it's not like
wait,
a question I can answer.
I agree that's possible, right? But my whole issue with that is that well, we have to talk about premise one then, and then if we're talking about premise
Oh,
one, then we didn't even get to this premise in the first place.
why? What's premise one? For any contingent type, something could explain. Yeah, I mean, yeah. We just keep going back
Okay,
to
and
that.
then
I
a
guess
brute
sure.
contingency is a contingent type, so that's the issue we're running into. I don't know
For
if
any
there's
contingent type, yeah, I agree. Something could explain its instantiation. No, I disagree. Because like if I bring up like autonomous contingencies or something, like yeah, like I know what you mean. I don't disagree with like the reasoning you're making. I just think you're wrong, and I'm not sure how to bridge that gap. I'll go through the rest. I won't. I'll try not to lean on brutes too much.
I mean,
It just seems
yeah.
like brute contingencies are kind of like the one thing this argument seems to like not address, or at least like
The
not
argument was
strongly
made to
address.
account for them, though. Like the whole argument was made to, because even in a possible world where it's like fully composed of like brute contingencies, like everything in that possible world is brute contingent,
Uh huh.
doesn't contradict the argument.
It doesn't contradict the argument. Well, what's the
Yeah, because
explanation
all of
for
those things
brute's
could be explained.
instantiation?
Huh?
Then what's the explanation for a world full of brutes? Like, what's the explanation there?
Wait, there is no explanation for all full of brutes, but every single one of those brutes could possibly be explained, which is the point.
Okay, yeah, but if it was a world full of only autonomous brutes, then it couldn't. So that's like
I've
the
never
thing.
heard of
Yeah,
like an
yeah.
autonomous.
I may have made it up. I don't know. I just read that thing and sent it, and then thought of it. It sounds smart though.
It does sound smart.
Contingencies. Let's see if
You're a
anyone's
smart little
written
boy.
about this. My God, I could be the first to write about this, dude. They'd fucking call me a hero. All right, let me try and read the rest without appealing to brute contingencies. See if we can get any further. All right. Something could be non-contingent. Yeah. Well, like
Then we
I.
just like invoke S5 from that.
Huh? Oh,
Like
five
we
from
just
three and
say,
four.
yeah, no, like yeah, wait.
I don't
Now
think.
like we're invoking S5 and saying if there is possibly a necessary thing, then
Yeah, I don't.
yeah, yeah.
All right. Yeah, but what if I don't agree with S5 and I agree with S4?
You reject like possible necessity being entailing necessity.
Yeah, because like the reverse ontological argument would lead to the exact opposite conclusion.
Um, the thing about reverse ontological arguments is that we can always just either reject the. I mean, yeah, we just have to pick the one we have more reason to affirm, right?
Huh?
We just pick the one that we have more reason to affirm. So
What does
like
that even
obviously they
mean?
both can be. Yeah, okay. So a necessary being and like possibly not existing, unnecessary being existing, like those two statements can't be true at the same time. So we pick the statement that we have more reason to affirm.
No, I don't know where you're getting that from. We would just say like, okay, maybe the scope that we're using in terms of this possibly necessary just doesn't make sense because you could just affirm two
What?
things that
Wait, we philosophers make symmetry breaking arguments all the
we
time. It's like
philosophers, we.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you are not a
Philosophers,
philosopher.
right? They
There you
make
go.
they refer to like these type of situations as symmetry, right? But we have no reason to pick one over the other. And then they give symmetry breaking arguments and say the symmetry is broken by this reason or that reason. So where we have more reason to affirm there being a necessary being over a non-necessary being, oh my bad, necessary being possibly non-existent, then we just take the necessary being existing if we have more reasons to affirm it.
That would
We can
work
just
for some
draw the
arguments, but it wouldn't work for an argument that's based on ontology. Because if you have two ontologically equal arguments, then looking for something external to that doesn't add to like the ontological
I
credence.
agree, but the whole point of this argument is it's that it's meant to be symmetry breaking because okay, the reason you give for what do you call it, saying that there possibly isn't any necessary being in some possible world. It could be like conceivability or whatever, right? But then I can also conceive of a necessary being. But not only can I conceive of a necessary being, we also have the argument from possible explanations and say, well, there's a possible world where all contingents are explained, and in that possible world, there is a necessary being. So we have two reasons to say there's a necessary being, and then from that we can say there is a necessary being, or most likely there is a necessary being.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's how that works. I'm not gonna lie. I
Then I don't
understand
know.
what you're saying. Like you're making like the symmetry breaker, but I don't think that's how that works ontologically.
I mean, for any two existence that are both contradictory, would we not say that the one that most likely exists is the one that we have more reason to affirm?
No, you would say like the premise of the argument itself is false because if you could prove two opposite conclusions with the same idea, then obviously the idea is flawed.
Not necessarily, right?
Give me a different
Like,
example.
give you a different example.
Yeah, like
Like,
yeah, like a different example.
um,
Like if it is possible that like the greatest towel on earth
oh yeah,
exists.
like literally, like I guess like equal interpretations in like fiction debates, right?
Yeah,
Like
I
we
know.
both equally. I mean, yeah, like we both
No.
equally infer the same thing from a scan, but we just take the one that has more reason. It's the same thing here.
But it
Like
doesn't
literally.
work the same because the difference is we're not talking about reasons for believing. We're talking about like the ontological nature of the conclusion, which in this case is that one argument proves two different conclusions. That's a problem.
One art. No, like the S5 isn't an argument. It's a principle that proves two different conclusions.
Sure, that's the same thing.
Also, I want to say it proves. It just gives some reason to believe.
Right, it gives some
And then
reasons
even,
to believe
and
A
even
and
then,
not A. Like it's a like this is
it's
why I'd
it's
rather use S4. And under S4 you don't have this problem.
it's not a it's not an issue of the principle. It's an issue with how you believe the conditions are fulfilled. If you think the condition is fulfilled by something like conceivability or whatever, then yeah, you can say that S5 is flawed. Because like obviously I can conceive of two different things that exist in all possible worlds that are contradictory. But if I'm not using what do you call it, conceivability as a metric possibility, then we probably might not have run into that issue in the first place.
Wait, what?
Yeah, okay, hold on. S5 is conditional such that if something is possible, then it exists in my bad. If something is possibly necessary, then it exists in all possible worlds. That's
Yeah.
S5. And it hinges on that possibility condition, if something's possibly necessary. But then that just depends, like it being contradictory depends on whether, like, on how you believe that condition is fulfilled. If that condition is fulfilled from conceivability, then obviously you might have two contrary conclusions from
What
it.
do you mean? It's an
But if
ontological
it's fulfilled
argument.
by
No one is
something
using
else,
conceivability.
oh wait, then how would you go ahead and justify that like being possibly?
But there being possibly not a necessary being?
Yeah.
By ontologically grounding it in S5.
Okay, so you're saying that from Law's logic, there's nothing that contradicts it.
Yeah.
And then like this is why I avoided the logical modal scope in the first
But
place.
this is what it comes down to. Is like even if you use a metaphysical modal scope, all you're getting is like, as you admitted, a lower scope of framework, which is not something you want to use.
I mean, not really. It's like it's the most useful one anyway, because when we're
I
talking about
100%
reality.
disagree. I think it is like the absolute like the way you described it makes it sound like it is the most useless garbage.
Okay, like what do you think metaphysics is? Like the study of reality, right? So whatever's
Sure.
possible in reality is what we should talk about because we're talking about reality.
Whatever's possible in reality. Yeah, but everything is true to its own essence. Like I don't. It doesn't make sense to me.
I mean, it does everything that the physical modal scope does and the logical one does. It points out contradictions, it points out possibilities, and it points out necessities. Like I don't see
But do you think it's
the issue.
metaphysically true that a autonomous contingency can never be explained?
Is it metaphysically true that an autonomous contingency can like if it's within its nature for that thing to be, then yeah, it can never be explained.
And if I was like, hey, I define this as that, and you're like, yeah, and it's like, all right, well, I don't. It seems like you're just doing definitional shit. Like you also
I
understand
mean,
like a big difference to
mhm.
me is like necessary truths versus like necessary existence. Like if I tell you like 2 + 2 = 4 is a necessary truth, like the water thing, like the problem is like just because something is true by definition, it's very different from assigning that same property to an existence.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, like there's just so many problems with using like this whole like metaphysical shit. Like I don't like it at all.
I mean, um, maybe I probably like presented it a bit wrong or whatever. I'm knowledgeable in this. I don't even debate theism, but I'm not gonna lie, it was a good talk. I came in for the debate, but I stayed there for discussion, so I'm gonna go
Dang,
now. Yeah,
write that down. Write that down. All right, Ramadan Mubarak.
you to you, brother. You to
Yeah.
you. In a bit, bro.
All right.